gender and ability, and the clergy vote and racial justice. So after that, we will have Reverend Jane Taylor to come and talk about the realignment of the districts. And after that, Ms. Carolyn Kidd will come and talk about the changes in the pension. And that's entitled Compass. So she's talking about Compass. It's about the pension for pastors. So that is our agenda for this evening. I've given them 20 minutes. Well, and if it's short, that's fine. We'll just go to the next person. But we want to recognize the pastor of this church, the lead pastor, Reverend Ace Chambers, who's going to come and share a prayer and tell us where the bathrooms are.
Well, welcome to First United Methodist Church. Hope that you found it easy to get in today, and we're just glad to host this event for the district. I do have the important information of where the restrooms are. Ladies, the easiest one for you to get to is if you go through this door, take a right, there's a restroom in the corner, and then gentlemen, you go out this door, take a left, and it's on the left. So that's the easiest way. There's also a water fountain near the men's restroom, if you have that need. So again, welcome. If you have any needs while you're here, please come find me. I'll be back in the sound booth, making sure that that's running well. But just wanted to say a word of thanks. And let's go to God in prayer as we begin this afternoon. Holy God, what a beautiful day you've given us, a beautiful day of worship and fellowship. And now we gather, oh God, in this space to hear all the work that has been done to prepare for Holston Annual Conference that is happening in June. We know that we're going to hear important pieces of information to help us make decisions as the Holston Annual Conference. Be with each speaker as they offer up their pieces this evening. Give them strength and courage and all that they need as questions are asked. But God, we pray that you would fill this room with your spirit, a spirit of peace and generosity, of hope and love and joy as we work together. We ask all this in Christ's holy name. Amen.
Amen. Brother Martinez, if you'll come, and if you have questions, write them down. We're going to hold the questions to the end to give all the presenters time to facilitate their discussion.
Green or yellow?
Green.
Okay, I'm going to try to pull up my notes. I'm sure that some of you or most of you will have the budget in front of you. There's a handout that has the proposed budget. It looks like this. She grabbed them all, didn't she?
Like an ice cream.
Okay, close.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not that big of a crowd. So. Okay, I think that most of you guys have it by now. So this year in annual conference, we will be going over two budgets, which is the same way that we dealt with it last year. And one will be 2025 amended budget, and then the second one will be the 2026 budget. The 2025 amended budget will be coming down from 6.7 million to 6.2 million. You can see the actual amount on your sheet. And a little bit over $500,000 reduction. I do want to point out this comes from appointment, personnel, and staffing changes. It is very important for us to realize that it does not come from changes to ministry programming. And you can see that on the breakdown as well. Over half of this reduction comes from equitable compensation, which this is related to appointments made by the cabinet, also from changes to directors and district superintendents made by the cabinet as well. So that's where most of this change is being absorbed. The 2026 budget is what I want to focus on today. That will be $5.97 million. And I think that is very logical for most of us, right? I don't have to explain the basics of a budget. It is, you expect this much income, so therefore you should spend that much money. What you have in front of you is what we try to put the most balanced amount. When I say we, I mean CFA, right? We try to come up with the most balanced amount and the best way to be stewards of the money that we have. Over the past 2 years, we have used or subsidized the budget to some degree. Last year alone, we used $1.3 million from reserves to make up the difference of the budget. This year, we're really striving to make that difference. We're striving to go away from borrowing from our own reserves. So what you will see is over the past, over here, my notes. Over the past couple of years, the tithes have been coming down. So 2023, we have 6.5 million, and then in 2024, we have 5.88 million. That is why the 2026 budget is going down. As you can see, it's $100,000 higher than our income from 2024. I do see the difference. However, that is the best way that we were able to make a fit. I do want to say this is a time of restructuring, and this is the best way that we're able to allocate the resources appropriately to every single line item that we believe needs the money right now, and based on that, come up with some yield for the future. Additionally, I do want to say there is a couple of ways that I always like to mention to people that you can help the church in a non-financial way that will yield some dividends for the church. Some of these are making disciples of Jesus Christ, which is why everybody is here, right? And then showing up to any events that you have in your local church. And then last one is volunteering at your local events. What I always like to say to people is there's a lot of programs that we have at the church that we do not see a yield immediately, a financial yield, right? We send a lot of kids to camp. We do a lot of BBSs for kids. Sometimes do not have the money to come in or pay for it. We just invite them. You don't expect to see a return onto those kids, at least not for 20 years, right? So that is where we're planting that seed. I do want to say that if you keep coming, volunteering, helping the local church, eventually that will turn into a financial yield for the church. Thank you. Sorry, my name is Moises Martinez. I help in Clinch Mountain District. I do the books for Clinch Mountain District. I do serve in my church. I am youth leader. And I am with CFA as well. And the Board of Day Ministry.
Thank you so much for your time.
I'm Sharon Bowers, and this is, oh, wonderful. Do you have a preference?
No, red or yellow?
No. Okay.
Oh, doesn't matter.
I'm Sharon Bowers,
And I'm Kristen Burkhart.
and we're going to talk about two specific, but we want to talk about all the things that you're going to be voting on at annual conference. So I'll go ahead and share them, and then Kristen will start to do some specifics, and we're just going to bounce off of one another. Is that okay? All right. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk a little bit. Did any of you all see the video that was online? I think it was Jonathan Jonas and
So first, United Methodist Church in Maryville, you can look online there, and they have videos out and information out. They're done very well.
Yeah.
Kind of explaining the process and why it's very important that we vote. Of course, we say that every year for annual conference, but this year's really important.
yeah, Sarah Slack and Jonathan Jonas have put that video. So, and all the information that we're going to share with you is online. Most of it comes from Resources UMC. So anything we tell you or talk about tonight, you can find it there. all 4 of the proposed amendments that you'll be voting on. All 4 of them are there. Resources, UMC. And there are videos there, so if you don't want to read it, you can listen to a video and get it in a shorter amount of time. But it is important that everyone votes this time. And one of the things that happens is sometimes when we get to annual conference, we decide that it's not important. Or we say it like this, my vote doesn't matter. Well, this time your vote really does matter. It mattered all the other times as well, but this time it really does. So I'm just going to do an overview. The Constitution can be read beginning on page 25 of the Book of Discipline. That's the 2024 version. So these are amendments to the Constitution for the UMC. So if you want to go there and look there, you can. And what has to happen is each amendment has to receive 2/3 of the majority of votes from all of the United Methodist Conferences. So we'll be voting, and we'll use the same format, 2/3 of how we vote, but it will go in with all the other, 127 or something like that conferences before it can be ratified. So this is about ratification, and so, 127 conferences across Africa, Europe, and the Philippines, and the United States have to vote in this. And so you're able to go and to take a look. And so there are 4 amendments. One is world, and we're going to talk about each of them real quick, but we're going to concentrate mostly on regionalization and racial justice. But there are 4. The first one is worldwide regionalization. The second is inclusion in membership, and it's really more aptly entitled gender and ability. I'll talk just a little bit about that. The third one is racial justice, and the fourth one is clergy delegate election. So all 4 of those are important. So, okay, all right.
It's translating.
Yeah, I
It's
was
okay.
like, did I do that? Okay, so worldwide regionalization is about how the church will be adapted, evangelism, all those things, how they will go on, mostly in a contextual perspective. So it will be in its context. And so all of these were overwhelmingly endorsed. I think regionalization was about 78% of the people at the General Conference voted for regionalization. So but now it has to be ratified. And so some of the things that will happen in regionalization that will offer is people will be able to publish their own hymnals, their own book of worship, their own regional book of discipline. They'll be able to define ordination and licensing requirements for clergy. They'll be able to establish what are the standards for lay membership. They'll be able to shape practices for marriages, funerals, and other rites in ways that align with Scripture and the laws of their country. And they'll be able to collaborate with annual conferences to ensure legal and contextual consistency. So we'll talk a little bit more about that when we get to the discussion part. But those are some things that you want to be thinking of that will actually happen. The second one was inclusion in membership, or it's paragraph 4, article 4. It's about gender and ability. And so the G. Cosros has been working really hard for 32 years, as a matter of fact, to get the Constitution changed to include a comment about gender and ability. And basically, what it really is just saying is that no one can be excluded from membership based on gender or based on ability. Heretofore, that could happen. It probably never really does happen, but it could happen. And it's all the more important with the changes that have been made overall to our to the way we do business as a United Methodist Church. So specifically what it says is that all persons without regard to race, gender, ability, color, national origin, status, or economic condition shall be eligible to attend its worship services, participate in programs, receive the sacraments upon baptism, be admitted as a baptized member, and upon taking vows declaring the Christian faith, become professing members in any local church in the connection. So it's about gender and ability, but it really is about inclusivity. And so that is important. And then from the racial justice perspective, it is Article 5, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. But what it really is committed to do is getting rid of all forms of racism. So it is an anti-racism way of looking at things. And what it does really, it just spells out what we've been saying that we've been living, but maybe we haven't been living it to its fullest as the United Methodist Church. So it uses these new profound languages and proposed languages, like it names things like white supremacy, colonialism, and racial justice. And the new amendment says that these are evils that the United Methodist Church must confront. So it's no longer just something that we can lightly talk about, but it is something that we have to actively be doing. It declares that racism is incompatible to Christian teaching, and it commits the church to anti-racism work in both the world and action. And then is that 2 or 3? Is that 3? That's 3. And then the final one is about, this don't have numbers on this page. The final one is about the clergy delegate elections, and it's paragraph 35. And basically what it talks about who is able to vote. And so it says that there is an educational requirement for clergy members of annual conference or provisional conferences who are eligible to vote for clergy delegates. So it's not the challenge that we've been having about can lay people vote or not, or can local pastors vote or not. It is more about the people who decide who the delegates are, the clergy delegates are to general conference. The people who make that decision have to have an educational requirement to do that. And so they basically say that you have to either have finished course of study or you have to have an MDiv in order to vote for the clergy representatives for general conference. So that's an overview of those 4 amendments that we'll be voting on. And so they have a rich history. They come from a really long time where people have been trying to make things happen. So I'm going to ask Kristen to share a little bit about some, and we'll just go back and forth to make sure that we cover what we think you need to know or want to know.
Deep breath, right? I feel like we're in a speed round. Okay, let's talk for a moment about regionalization. If you go to umc.org, there is a 2-part session on regionalization that walks through several steps, gives history and information, so I refer you to that. It's very useful in how it processes things out. When I think about regionalization, if I'm trying to make it practical and make sense in my mind, that's always scary, isn't it? Each person has their own. If you've read Niebuhr, Christ in Culture, where we're encouraged to look at the cultures we've been placed in, as appointments I've received, and some of you as well, I've always gone in to respect the culture that I've been placed in first, and to learn that culture and why they do what they do before we come in and make any changes, because the changes may not be needed. So when we look at regionalization, I think it's just us moving that along. We're respecting the culture that we're being placed in and including that across the world for the United Methodist Church. This isn't a new thing. Central conferences are regionalized, and so this has been done, and they have gotten some opportunities to change things. For example, for a while there, they decided they would not move on in the disciplines for ordination past 1996. They would continue to follow the rules that were previous to 1996, where you had to be a deacon and then an elder. Anybody have to do it that way? Yes, okay. So they held on to that longer for their culture and their education system that was in place for them that was successful. They've now come over to the way that we're doing things at the moment. So before we look at, when we talk about regionalization, sometimes we always think it's change and it's bad. It's already been done, and it was good in that position, in that place, so we have to determine what that is now. And so that's why we're offering this information to you. So regionalization would be in between jurisdiction and general conference. So the United States would be a region, and that culture that we are in and we live in would be considered in our decisions. And so that's an opportunity that we can do that for. It doesn't mean we have to. There are negatives to that as well. In that regionalization, there's different hymns. I have enough trouble with the hymns. I like that everybody sings some of the same hymns. But if you've been in other churches, I had one church that only sang out of the red hymnal, page 325. And David Woody was at that church too. All right, and so we think about those things when we think about regionalization. It's not just about affirming into the United States culture. It's about working within the culture we've been placed in.
Yeah, and one thing that I differ a little bit from some people on regionalization is that we want to be mindful that it also opens the door for some of the things that have been done that we may think has been good for us in the United States in particular. Primarily, I think about issues surrounding clergy ordination with women. That may be one of those things that might be challenged in another country. They may decide that that's not relevant as soon as it's passed, and so there may be some setbacks. So we want to be mindful and well-informed when we look at it and not just say, oh, this is great, everybody's going to be doing their own thing in their own context. Well, everything in its own context may not be good, and then there may be some challenges or some things that the United States has held back on that we might go full throttle, because we are just the United States now. So there are some things that you want to think about in making your vote and be informed.
Those are considered in the discipline sections 7 and 8. So there are things that are going to stay consistent in the discipline. So the things that are open for change or discussion are sections 7 and 8 when you look at regionalization. So that's one of the main items we were asked to make sure you understand.
And everybody has a copy of this. You should have gotten it. That's the Resource UMC's version to tell you the shortcuts to regionalization of what it's about.
All right, I think we'll have a time for questions later on at the end. So do you want to address the social justice?
Yes. You want to start?
I'll let you go.
Okay, well, our racial justice, as I said earlier, one of the things that's going to happen is that we've always been a denomination, not always, but for many years we've been a denomination that says that we are anti-racist. We've not been able to live into it. It's been very difficult, and we see that on Sunday mornings in our churches. We see it in appointments when somebody is appointed to go somewhere and they may not be of the same ethnicity. So what this is going to actually do is to say that we are going to do something about it. We're going to finally practice what we preach. And so we're going to actually make hard decisions and hard statements that say that racism is a sin. And we're going to look at it at both from a theological perspective as well as from a more global perspective. And so those are the kinds of things that this is going to do. And it's going to give people from other ethnicities and other countries and other ways of life an opportunity to be who they be, as opposed to having to have a dominant group that they have to ascribe to try to be like in order to be included. It's kind of funny, we just had a cross-racial, cross-ethnic, cross-denominational service today, and what was so funny, we had a Baptist pastor local come in, and he spent he's a phenomenal preacher, and he'll usually take his shirt off and his jacket. He'll take his jacket off while he's preaching, and he'll throw his papers up in the air, and I mean, he's phenomenal. But today he was tame, because he was in a predominantly white church. And we talked about that, and he had talked to his congregation about him not doing that, because I guess he felt the need not to be him, but to be more white-like. And that's some of the things that when we look at Article 5, one of those things that's going to happen is going to take away that so that people can be who they are in their own context and be celebrated for who they are, rather than to be trying to ascribe, quote unquote, to a dominant group of people.
I think it gives more backing to what we said we were going to do a long time ago. With open heart, open minds, and open doors, Sunday morning is very segregated time, and so this is combative of that. So we're going to step into those things, not only in how we worship and serve, but also in appointments. And so that is what's being offered. I feel like they're just putting a better meal on the table. It's going to be more meaty. Like this is how we're doing it, and this is what's really wrong about that. So you need to read those items in detail and consider those words. I would encourage you to look up the words that they're wanting to change in the dictionary. We say, oh, we know those words, we're educated, it's fine. But those change over time. You can look it up in the Urban Dictionary as well, and it may come up differently. So that would be my 2 cents worth.
And you have this right here. It looks like Article 5, racial justice. And one of the things, there's a video also that the director of G Corps is on sharing, and he shares pretty explicit. But there are some key points of significance, and I'll just highlight those real quick for you. The explicit acknowledgement of racism. We have to call it what it is, y'all, and we've not wanted to call it. We've been really dancing around it for a long time, and some people have even left the United Methodist Church because of these kinds of changes, because it was not all over the LGBTQ+. Some of it was over Black Lives Matter, some of it was over anti-racism, some of it was over different things. And so, when we say words like white supremacy, sometimes people get nervous and get afraid. And so it's really about acknowledging that. It's about figuring out a way to commit to active anti-racism. We say that, but sometimes we look at the table. Who's serving at the table? Who's creating the table? And one of the things that I suggest, that if the table is set up and it doesn't look diverse, then it should be a failed table. And whatever's going on at that table should not be allowed to go on, because that's probably a place where anti-racism is not being used. It's a response to a historical context. You know the story about people say, that wasn't me. That might have been my people all those years ago, but I don't want to be a part of that. And so it is a response to let people know what has happened and how many social movements we've had to use to get to the places where we are today, like the civil rights movement, even for women, the suffragist movement. But it's also about finding a way for unity and healing. How can we heal, y'all? How can we get to a place where we no longer look at our Sunday morning services that are so totally segregated and somehow feel like it's okay, or say it's okay, or purposely not do anything about it? So they're calling those kinds of things into question. And then they're looking at moral leadership. What kind of leader are you really if you support racist ideology and racist behavior, even if you do it without actively saying it? Nobody's saying you're wearing a hood, or you're going here or going there, or you're out marching, or any of those things, but do you allow that to go on without confronting it and without calling it into place and without looking and saying that something is wrong? We need to be about the business of social justice. And then how do we reform this? How do we as the United Methodist Church, who have a history of way back, I mean, John Wesley had a treatise about slavery. You know, we have a rich history as Methodists to be able to combat racism, and we should probably be a little bit further along than we are. So you have that to look at, and hopefully it will get us to a place where we won't be afraid to talk about the elephants that are in the room and the kinds of things that we've not yet done, and be okay to be vulnerable in these spaces and these places. And so that's what it's calling us to do. As Kristen said earlier, I believe it's the place where you put, my mama used to say it like this, the rubber meets the road. You have to put something behind what you said all along. Your actions have to follow what you say. You can no longer say you are anti-racist, but your church or where you go or what you do doesn't add up to that.
So that's probably our 20 minutes.
Yeah.
We were given a lot of material to cover in a small amount of time, but I suggest that you would continue to look those items up and to hunt those down. If you have questions for us, email us and we'll give you some references.
Yeah, and we'll take some questions when we get to the time for all the questions, but everything, and this is a really good place and space for people to start to look. Sometimes one of the things, who's next? I'll keep talking. One of the things, come on, Jane, one of the things that we say is that we say we didn't know, or they tricked us, or they put that, we didn't see what was going on, but the reality is all of this is on a website somewhere. If you dare to read it, if you dare to look it up, you can see all this.
I'm Jane Taylor, and I'm from Clinch Mountain New River districts. I'm going to talk about the district realignment. And you know, we do have a lot of stuff at annual conference this year coming up. We have many things to think about, and one of those is district realignment. The Holston Conference Strategy Team is charged with every 4 years following General Conference looking at right-sizing the conference with the districts. The annual conference votes on the number of districts that we have in Holston, and then the bishop and cabinet set the churches that are in those districts. So the proposal this year is that we go from 9 districts to 6 districts. And you should have received a handout with a map, and attached to that also is a list of the churches, And so you can find your church and see what district you're going to be in. Probably there's not anybody here that's going to be in Clinch Mountain or New River. The strategy team appointed a subcommittee to look very specifically at what the needs were for the Holston Conference for districts. And they looked at demographics, economics, ministry viability, mission opportunities, racial, ethnic, cultural, and regional needs and differences. And so they came up with this proposal for these 6 districts. We are hoping that we are going to realign ourselves in a way that we can live within our means, as Moises talked about, as well as look with hope to the future. And so we felt like that having 5 districts was going to be too disruptive to the annual conference. And so even though we're only going to have 5 district superintendents, joy, we will have 6 districts this year with the hope of adding a district superintendent within the next 2 or 3 years. Is that how you understand it? Moises is also on the Holston Conference strategy team. And so you can look at where you are and where you will be, and then if you have questions at the end, I'll be glad to try to help answer those. Thank you.
I love traveling with Jane and her big bag. I'm Carolyn Kidd. I'm with the Holston Conference Board of Pensions, and I'm here to bring you good news. Very good news. The Board of Pensions and Health Benefits sets a rate for direct billing. If you're in a church where you receive direct billing for the past few years, that direct billing has been 16.3. With changes to the pension plan and some reduction in administrative fees and so forth, we are very happy to announce that effective 1/1/26, the direct billing to the churches will be 14%. So we are very happy that we have been able to do that to help our local churches. That is in large part because we have a new pension plan, a new defined contribution plan for our clergy coming 1/1/26. It is called Compass. It was the proposal that Westpath brought to the General Conference, and the General Conference passed. Some of our clergy here will now have most of our clergy here will have multiple pension plans to manage. And I'm not going to talk a whole lot about the mechanics of that. I am going to tell you that you're going to hear a lot about it. The clergy session on Sunday, our Westpath educator will be with you for a presentation for clergy. On Tuesday, during our Board of Pensions presentation, the same Westpath presenter will be to make a presentation to the whole body. And then on Tuesday night, if you don't have dinner plans, Tuesday evening, and want to learn more, you can come hang out in Harrell Center. Harrell Center, is that where we are? It'll be posted. We will give you a sandwich and some chips and some cookies, and we'll have that same Westpath person and Board of Pensions members there to answer specific questions. Now, if that's not enough for you, then in August, we're going to do what I am calling a road show. Knox Wimberly is the incoming chair of Board of Pensions. I'm the incoming vice chair, and we're going to bring our new treasurer along with us. And so we're going to come to various areas within the annual conference to do some hands-on training. We invite you to bring your computer. We'll help you navigate the Westpath site. We'll help you with that dreaded pastor support worksheet. The virtual will be at the Alcoa Center on the 20th of August. The Knoxville area will also be on the 20th of August in the afternoon. Chattanooga, Cleveland will be the 21st. Johnson City, Kingsport, the 23rd. Chattanooga, Cleveland, I believe, is an evening. Johnson City is an afternoon, and then Wytheville on 8/24 in the afternoon. These are all information things for you. There is one item that the Board of Pensions brings to the annual conference every year, and that is the past service rate for clergy who receive pre-82 pensions. And the annual conference actually votes to set that. We are asking for an increase this year of 2.6%, and that will help my friend Denny Humphreys go from a past service rate of $648 to $665. It will also help me, so yes. That is the only agenda item that you all vote on. The other thing that I am excited to bring to you is a new EAP, a comprehensive EAP for clergy, for conference employees, for district employees, for retired clergy, and all their family, and it's not going to cost you a penny. The Board of Pensions is covering the cost of this EAP. It is called Uliance. You're going to hear more about that at annual conference. We have the contract in front of us now, and we're reviewing that to sign it. It will be effective July 1st of this year. And you have a handout, I believe, with this stuff on it. It will tell you the different components of this EAP. The providers are all, on average, 8+ years of experience, postmasters in counseling, and so they can do on-site, they can do remote, Zoom-type things. If you get a provider and you all don't just seem to gel, then you get to pick another one. The visits are unlimited. There are some additional little side benefits to that, some life stages coaching, which will take place as we need it, crisis intervention. If we have churches that have, they will bring a team in for us. And so that is what we will be presenting to you at annual conference. Thank you. I don't know who gets it next. I suppose that's me. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you to all of our presenters. Now, at this time, I'm going to ask the presenters all to come up. So if you have questions, that they may be able to answer them. And I have one. Sister Kidd, what does EAP stand for?
Employee Assistance Program. This is a counseling, we think of it as a counseling program. And that's basically what it is, but it has many other components, like life coaching and all. Insurance generally will give you a little bit of it. This is totally comprehensive so that you get a lot of benefits.
So is it like
no, you've asked, so let me say, that is a Personnel Relations Committee decision with our current wellness center. I have no idea. I just know we're bringing this on in alongside, or however that works.
Thank you.
I've got one to travel with,
Okay.
so.
Yes, great, thank you.
Questions?
I'm Amy Thomas, and I'm from Christ Child Methodist in Greenville. And I was looking at a lot of the differences in the districts. And where in Appalachian District that most of us will be in, where will the office be? And will it be centralized so that all people have equal travel?
So the location of the district offices is up to the district office staff. So the district superintendent and the district office staff will select a place where the district, I know for my districts, my plan is to try to go where the people are, if I can. So if the district office is an hour or hour and a half away from where people are, to go and to try to meet with people there. Appalachian District is going to kind of be a combination of the current Appalachian District, the current Three Rivers District, and then part of Mountain View. And so I don't know exactly where that office is going to be. That would be something to contact, well, do you know?
Where the office is going to be?
Yeah.
My understanding is that it's going to be in Kingsport. I don't know.
Okay.
She said, don't call her.
My understanding is that it might be in Kingsport.
It has moved to Kingsport, and this week.
Okay, so you know a lot about it.
So Kingsport's the upper part, that just seems so far away.
But I don't know that, like Reverend Taylor said, the DS may have
Cluster gatherings to make it a little bit more convenient for people. But I understand that that is perhaps where it has moved to. And they may move around like Reverend Taylor has suggested.
Probably nothing's permanent. If that doesn't work, then, you know, they could try to, I don't know. That's what I would do anyway.
Yeah. I imagine that's an hour from us here in Greenville, but it's probably also the higher Appalachian district now, it probably would be like about an hour for them as well.
So, yeah, much of Virginia is going to be in Clinch Mountain. So, yeah. But, yeah, the districts are definitely going to be larger. But we have all this technology available to us. We can just email things.
other questions on that.
So you said 5 district superintendents, so are 2 of them sharing one?
Yes, so Clinch Mountain and New River. So, did somebody tell you to ask that question? So Clinch Mountain and New River will have one district superintendent. That will be me. Joy. I love it though.
Okay.
I'm on live feed. I gotta watch.
Will you have help?
Yes, I will have help. Yes.
I can just use this one. I'm Linda Schuman, First UMC in Jefferson City. Has there been any discussion or decision? I understand that the move to the district, so I thought I'd stand this subject, is being asked to be accomplished as soon as possible, shall we say. Is there any discussion about churches directing their apportionment payments, especially those who have not paid their full apportionment?
So district askings, is that what you're talking about? Yes, so beginning July 1st, your district askings would go to your new district. We know that this is going to take time to work into. There are lots of things that need to change, bank accounts, property things. But beginning July 1st, it'll go to your new district. If it goes to your old district, they'll just pass it on. But we are hoping to have this fully in place by January 1st. And some of you all might remember the last time we realigned districts. This is going to be similar to that in how, that's going to be done. I bet you were in the district office then. Yeah. So you probably know more about it than I do. Yes. Other questions?
Smart group.
Yes. If you have questions, you can contact any of us or your district superintendent as a follow-up, and we'll try to answer those.
And I would suggest that you really do spend some time before the vote going and seeing what's out there on all of this information that we've been talking about, because your vote is going to be representing many people. And so it's not just a personal thing, how we might feel specifically, although we get to vote our conscience, but it would be important for us to vote with an informed conscience so that we know. And there's so much information out there that no one should go to annual conference and say, well, I didn't know about that. It's just, are you willing to take your time to look it up and to Google? Just hit a Google. If you hit anything, it's going to give you a plethora of information about the subject that you asked. So I would hope that all of us would do that research.
No other questions? Concerns? Comments? Hearts are one. There's one.
My concern is with regionalization. And my understanding is that one of the reasons for this is to allow some flexibility in the way of respecting people's cultures. And I'm just wondering, how are we going to really protect women in particular, women who want to go into the ministry, if, their particular culture is denying them that ability or that right? How are we going to protect that, and things like women's status in matrimony, and I'm just wondering, are we giving away too much?
Because you know how I feel, but go ahead. You want? And then I'll.
That I have you go ahead.
Okay. Well, I think that's one of the things that we're going to see what happens when that vote actually happens, because I firmly believe Denny and Kristen and I were talking earlier, it's probably going to be a lot of rapid changes that are going to occur as soon as that happens, and we really won't be able to do anything about it. But much of the stuff, quote unquote, should remain the same. If they're part of the United Methodist Church, there are some things that should not change. Now, will they? I don't know, but they should not change. And so those things that we hold to be true and self-evident as United Methodists should remain. But what are the options? What are you saying, Denny? Yeah, who knows? It's kind of that kind of thing. But it's the same way we talked about earlier. How many things have we supposed to be doing that we haven't done? And we talk about women from a culture perspective somewhere else. They may be denied legally, but we still deny people here in other ways. Like, who can pastor the large church? Can it be a woman to pastor the large church, or does it have to be a man? And even though the implication says it should be anyone and it's open itinerary, that doesn't happen. So how the law would affect that is anybody's game.
Yes.
I think that's where Jonathan Jonas and Sarah Slack's video at First United Methodist in Maryville will be helpful to a lot of people, because they do. Thank you, Kristen. Jonathan Jonas and Sarah Slack at First UMC in Maryville's video will help with that, because some of these amendments we're voting on are the Constitution of the United Methodist Church. Therefore, anything the regions seek to do that is contrary to what the Constitution states, they will not be allowed to do. So that video spells out some of those things, like protection for women, for clergy specifically, and some of those other things. So I think if you go to First UMC Maryville, their website, and watch that video, it will be very instructive.
Kristen, you mentioned regionalization would create a United States region that would fit between jurisdictions and General Conference. Is there a possibility that we will do away with jurisdictions? Yes. Okay. And I'm happy about it.
So that opens up the door for moving away from jurisdiction. Otherwise, you're just kind of implanting another level of bureaucracy, maybe. You can look at it different ways. The other thing about the voting you need to pay attention to is that it's 2/3 vote, so it is very important. You do not have to vote for regionalization. We're not here to tell you to vote or not vote for. We're here to tell you here are some things that you need to consider. And so I think women in ministry is something we consider, the culture, and those we keep out of the church in the United States we need to consider, because we want folks to be in the church. So there's a lot to consider, and that's where it needs to be prayerfully considered before you just vote. Please don't sit to the person next to you and just vote what they're voting.
The vote of the annual conference is important, but the total vote.
Yeah, it's the aggregate vote? Yeah. Right. So in the video, David mentioned, it says that the Central Conferences voted mostly against regionalization, and so therefore regionalization did not pass because I think our conference was at 63%, give or take. I just watched the video and was memorizing things for you, I'm just telling you. So our number needs to go up if that wants to go forward with regionalization. So it's not just our conference vote that determines it.
What would happen if regionalization did not pass? Just like it is. It'd be business as usual, but what kind of business as usual? I think part of one of the things that
Regionalization will help us do, if it does pass, it will help us to start to see how we do business. And from a dominant perspective, it will be challenging for us for the United States not to be in charge, extra large in charge of everything that's been going on for so long. And so I think those are some things that we will have to get used to, is that what we say and do will primarily affect us outside of what's in the Constitution, would only affect us. And I think that's going to be challenging for us because we've always been the go-to. We've always said, come to America. Quote unquote, we've always said those kinds of things. And so I think for the United States, it would be challenging. But I think other people are saying we matter too. And our customs matter, and our way of life matters. And if we're going to continue to be a part of you, you're going to have some things in consideration. One of the things that happened when we were at General Conferences, we had that big, long discussion about some of the things that ended up being changed. And one of them was really an African contingency, really concerned about, child marriage. And they kept saying, hear what we're saying. You can change that, but you also need to put in there of a legal age. And so some people made out that was something totally crazy, but it wasn't. It was being inclusive of the African country because so many of the countries in the continent, are all for child marriage. And so those women, quote unquote, young girls weren't having any representation. So sometimes it goes back and forth, for good and bad, but we'll just have to let the chips fall where they may and see what happens.
My guess would be if it didn't pass that, the jurisdictions and the other bodies that lead the church are going to be rediscussing how to approach that again a different way. They're not going to just leave these issues laying down. So they're going to keep moving them along as best they can. So there will be another way to come forward, as we've seen happen over the years in other items.
And I think that possibly, we need to guard ourselves or be ready for a major shift. This is a major shift for the United Methodist Church. However it goes, however the vote goes, there are, as we see what's happening to us right now in and around us, so many of the things that the United Methodist Church stands for politically have become things that other people don't like. And so we saw the one shift with the LGBTQ+. Can you imagine the possible shift for anti-racism? And then the possible shift for other things. So we need to be aware of what is going on and be mindful of how these things affect all people.
So you were talking about leveling everything with the United States and the central conferences. Do the central conferences have jurisdictions?
No.
They can if they want to, but they don't. They choose to elect their bishops within the central conference level, not a jurisdictional level where we elect our bishops.
And we know the reason why we have jurisdictions. That's part of the whole anti-racism thing. That's the whole racist reason that we have jurisdictions in the United States, was to deal with racism. But we didn't, that was, you can come, but you can only come so far. You can be included, but not really included. Go over there and be separate and allegedly equal when it ended up being separate and unequal. So we had them for a reason. And I think from the perspective that some of the conversations we had at General Conference, people are not really trying to continue that legacy. So I think that would not be anything that would stay. We'd be glad to get rid of it. How many people in here are actually voting members?
Oh,
yeah. So that's really important, Dr. Graycroft.
Yeah, I was looking at my notes, and the question about what will we share as far if we vote for regionalization, and what we'll share is the Constitution, social principles, doctrinal standards, theological tasks, the ministry of all Christians, the Book of Resolutions, the Council of Bishops, the Judicial Council, the general agencies, and the General Conference. And the regions would determine for themselves ordination standards, lay membership standards, marriage and funeral ceremonies, and book of worship and hymnals is what it said. So if that's helpful for whoever asked that question.
And I think, Dr. Graycroft, one thing that could potentially be challenged by is heretofore the United States has been an enforcer, quote unquote. So because heretofore we have been an enforcer, it'll be hard or difficult, and we'll have to be cognizant and aware of what is going on, because when you talk about some of those things, it's like what Brenda said earlier, what Reverend Brenda said about marriage. You know, if regionally they can determine marriage, then that marriage may go counter to what our Constitution, our Book of Discipline is calling for. So there will need to be some safeguards to make sure that that's reinforced and that it doesn't just immediately lax into a culture thing.
So last time, any other questions, concerns, comments? So all of our presenters, will you stand and let's show them some love, please, this evening. Thank you all for coming. I want y'all to know, we only did this for an hour. I can't believe it. That's weird. Reverend Majors, will you close us out, please?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
God, thank you for this time. Perhaps many of us have are leaving today with more questions than we have answers, and we don't even know how to ask our questions. But God, we have felt your presence here. We have felt that you are moving Holston Annual Conference and the United Methodist Church into a new way of being. But God, we ask that the ways that we vote, the ways that we do church, the ways that we love one another will all be done to glorify you. So thank you for this time, and thank you for this United Methodist Church that we get to come and share your love and your grace in our unique way with our communities and with the world. Help us to continue to bear the image of Christ. In his name we pray, amen. Amen. Go in God's peace. please.